tonight and joining us for our live chainmail stream. I'm on tonight by myself, so hopefully this goes okay. Chris has had to duck out, so I'm hoping this works all right because I don't have his technical support. Oh, I must be live. I can see Susie. Hi everyone. Oh good, it's all worked properly. The last few weeks it hasn't worked properly straight out the gate, so I'm really pleased. Hey everyone, really good to see you all. There's so many here. Cassandra, Natalie, Dana, Shirley, Kylie, Joe. Hey Rosalind and Diane, Ray and Cheryl, Kim. So many. How are we today? Hey Leanne. Morning Carol, how are you? Hey Margaret. Hey Cassandra. Hello Wes. Hey Sarah and Rosie. Hey Brizzy, good to see you. Chris is actually not here at the moment, Brizzy. He's had to duck off to pick up our daughter from work. She got called in for a shift that she doesn't normally do, so he's just gone to pick her up. Hey Megan and Shirley and Silva, Lorraine. Good to see you guys. How's your Saturday been? Hey Deb. Oh, cool. Well, I'm glad to see you're all here and that you're all eager to do this weave. I don't know if anybody else has done it. I know a couple of people have done it and posted it. All right. Magic mirror. Well, I was never a romper room watcher, Ray. Grew up in the country where we didn't have anything as fancy as romper room. Hey Anthea, love, how are you? All right, beautiful people. Well, I'm going to jump into this straight away for those that have come along to watch the tutorial, and we can catch up with chat later. And I'm sure Chris will be along soon. So I just need to. Haven't got this camera set up properly, so bear with me for a couple of minutes while I just set the other camera up. Okay, there we go, beautiful. Hey Rodney, good to see you. All right, so as I said, we're doing OneRing this week, which is a JPL variant, and contrary to its name, it doesn't use just one ring size. It actually uses a couple of ring sizes. So I've got a few sample pieces here made up for you guys to have a look at. So in 14 gauge AWG, which is 1.6 millimeter diameter wire, the big rings that you can see here, they're 8.5 millimeters. Now the size of the big rings aren't important. You can make them pretty much whatever size you want to make them. What you need to pay special attention to is the smaller rings. Okay, so in this case, they're 11/64 or 4.37 millimeters. You want these rings to be at the tight end of JPL, which is around an aspect ratio of about 2.9. You really do need that extra tightness in there to keep these larger rings under control. So the small rings are the important ones. If you've got an aspect and an actual aspect ratio, so something that incorporates spring back of about 2.8, 2.9, you should be fine. And the larger rings, pretty much whatever you've got on hand. But as I said, in this case, the larger rings were 8.5 mils. This is the 16 gauge version, and the large rings I chose here were 1/4 inch or 6.35 mil. So I tried to pick sizes that were close to our AA sizes if you wanted to incorporate some color into this. So that's why these are 1/4 inch. The small sizes are 16 gauge 1/8 of an inch or 3.18 millimeter ID. And the 18 gauge version, 3/16 or 4.76 millimeters for the big ones. And the little ones are 7/64 of an inch or 2.78 millimeters. Now I didn't get a 20 gauge made up, and I realized looking at the tutorial I didn't even write the 20 gauge sizes down. So for 20 gauge you'd be looking at the big rings being about 4.25 mils and the small rings 3/32 of an inch, which is 2.38 mils. So that's the sizes that I've used. The guys who are part of the Maille Club, they also received a kit for these graduated earrings. So pretty much the same thing, but just using graduated size. So you can see what I mean by the bigger rings not having to be a particular size. The important rings are those small ones. Okay, so I'll make a start on this tonight, and I'll be weaving this in the 14 gauge. So hopefully you guys will be able to see what I'm up to. Okay, so I'm going to start JPL. I started this with just a small section of JPL. The length of that is up to you guys. I did about 6 rings in total. I think it just helps stabilize that weave at the beginning. If you jump onto one ring straight out of the gate, I just don't think it looks as good. But this is a personal thing, guys, so totally up to you. All right, so I'm just going to show you a small section of JPL before we jump into putting the larger rings in. So to start JPL, start off with one of your closed rings and put a twist tie through that. Okay, that's going to give you something to hang on to, which you're going to need. All right, so taking up another open ring, we're just going to slip that straight through the middle and close this up. Okay, and then we want to position that so that it sits back on the ring. Okay, and we want to look at this eye here that's in the middle. That's where our next ring is going to place, straight in there in the middle of that eye. So keeping those 2 rings into position, picking up another opened ring, go straight through that eye. Okay, close your ring up, and then positioning your next ring, we go in here in this eye underneath this first ring here. Okay, so I'm just going to slip that ring in there, making sure it sits underneath that first ring, and I'm going to close that up. Okay, and the next one slips in here, through that eye there, underneath the ring that's already in the eye. So if you notice what I'm doing, I'm slipping the ring in, and then I'm just letting it naturally twist while I do close that ring up, and then I just pick up the piece, and we're already in the right position to be able to put our next ring in. Okay. So I'm just going to slip that ring in there, close it up, and away we go. So you can do that for however many you want. Half a dozen is more than enough in my books, but if you want it to be a little bit longer. So once you've got that starting length that you want, take up one of your large rings, and we're going to feed it through that exact same space. Okay, so in there, through the eye, so we've got, this is the ring we just placed sitting on top. This is our second ring. This is the third ring back. So we slip this through the first 2 rings, bringing it in underneath the third ring. Close it up. And again, just grabbing it the same way as I was before when I was working on the small rings. This is our first ring. This is our second ring. This is the eye, so that's where we put our next one, and it's going to go underneath the third ring in the weave. Okay, so again, grabbing another big ring, putting it in that position, letting the piece twist by itself naturally. And then I'm going to grab this like I would if I was still weaving in the same size. The next ring that we want to place in here is a small ring. Now obviously you can't slip it underneath the third ring. The gap here is too large, but we position it just like we were going to do that. Okay. So straight in there like that. Again, letting the piece fall by itself naturally and twist. And then when I pick it up, making sure I haven't let go of this ring yet. You can see that we've got the first ring and the second ring and the eye that is supposed to feed through, and the third ring that we want to slip in underneath. So we grab a large ring and we slip into that eye of the small and the large ring, making sure we keep underneath that large ring. If it's going to slip out anywhere, this is where it will slip out, so you do need to keep an eye on where this large ring is positioning, making sure that it doesn't slip around through the front. And then hanging on to this, making sure we've got all of this positioned correctly. This is our first ring, this is our second ring. There's the eye that we want to place the next ring in. This is the third ring that we want to slip it in underneath. We've got one large ring placed, so we want to place a second large ring. And that's basically it, guys. It's just JPL with a couple of big rings thrown in there. You just have to be careful of the placement of some of those big rings, that they don't slip out before you lock them into place. And you just keep doing that for the length that you need it to be. So going through those first two rings there, making sure I'm slipping in underneath the third ring in the piece. Remember, this is where the rings can slip out of place, so make sure when you pick it up that that ring is holding pattern, that it's in the back. Okay, if it's going to go haywire, that's where it's going to go. Okay, sorry guys about the placement being off the screen. It's a little hard to weave and look at the screen and look at the camera. I'll try that again. It looks like my camera's been moved. So I'll try that again for you. Okay, straight in there. So once you've positioned two big rings, we want to position a small ring. Obviously you can't put that small ring under anything, all right, because of the large rings, but we want it to maintain that same position all the way across. Okay, we're letting it fall naturally, and then we're separating out basically the second and third ring there, because we want our next ring to slip in underneath that third ring. Yeah, sorry guys, it looks like my camera got moved and I didn't realize. So I am sorry about that, and I'll run a few more sections. Okay, so straight in there, underneath the third ring, closing it up. Again, I'm putting my thumb in between the second and the third ring to give me the position where the next one goes, which is down in here. So down through there like that, close it up. Okay, so I just need to open up a few more rings. So the next one in place is the small ring. The small ring just goes through those two, just like that. You can see the weave naturally twists by itself into position. I'm not letting go of my right hand. I'm not letting go of the ring that I just added. What I'm doing is I'm picking up the tail. I'm sticking my thumb in between what is the second and third ring. That shows me the position where that next ring wants to go. Okay, and you can see this space in here where I'm going to pick up rings 1 and 2. If I go through there, I go through straight through those 2 rings and underneath ring 3. Okay, so underneath. Okay, again, letting it fall naturally, picking the tail up, putting my thumb in between rings 2 and 3 so I can see where I need to position that next ring, which is in that gap just there near my thumbnail. Taking up another large ring. Go straight through that space, keeping underneath the third ring, closing it up. All right. Do you guys still need me to keep going? Are we glad? Are we glad? Sorry. Are we done? How are we going with that, guys? Are we happy with it?
One more for Lorraine.
Yep, I saw that. Okay, I'll just start at the small. Okay, so we've placed our 2 large rings. Feed the small ring through those 2 rings there. You're always feeding a ring through 2. Okay, so through those 2 rings, close your ring up. It falls naturally like this, as long as you don't let go of this plier. That gives it the natural twist to where you want it to be. Put your thumb in between rings 2 and 3 as you're going down. Okay, this shows you where the next space wants to go. We always want to go underneath this 3rd ring here, and we want to go through rings 1 and 2. So this little space in here, that's where we want to go. So we've just placed our small ring, so we're going to place a large ring now. Now be careful with this large ring because it can move out of place. This is where you're going to lose the space if you are going to. Make sure that it sits in position. Place your 2nd large ring, which should help lock it all together. Okay, so straight through rings 1 and 2, sitting underneath rings 3. And that's it. So you do 2 large, 1 small until you reach the end, and then, you know, pop a few more rings on the end, whatever it is that you did at the beginning, and it's done. All right, I'm going to take that as everyone's good. No more questions or anything like that, guys?
Looks nice.
Thank you, baby. Okay, well, if everyone's good.
Well, not everyone. Margaret's not sharing her wine at the moment.
Huh.
What we've got organ.
Hey, Cynthia, I'm glad you turned up, sweetheart. Megan, it's not too hard. I know people say that JPL is a really difficult weave. Just take it slowly. You'll be fine. All right, beautiful people. Well, I don't have anything else for you tonight. I think we're pretty much done. Nothing much has changed since last week on any news fronts. So
the Mail Club subscription is closed, but back catalogue is still open for those who want to catch up. Let's just go to the page.
I agree, Wes. Just a lot of people have a blank about JPL. It actually isn't that difficult, to be honest. You've just got to make sure that you stick it in the right spot. And if you do as I say and just let the piece fall naturally, you know, you've got it falls into position, everything's fine. All right, lovelies. Well, I might call it quits for tonight then. Oh, do I really have to?
Apparently.
Haven't you guys seen this enough?
No.
There you go. All right. I'm going to call it quits, guys. Thanks very much for turning up. Next week is our chat week, which is also our prize week. I don't know what the price is going to be yet. I haven't sorted that out. Yeah, the third, what is it? 1, 2, 3. The placement of the fourth ring is the one that sets the pattern in place. So once you've got that fourth ring in place, all you need to do is follow the pattern. If you know how to do JPL, Kerry, it won't be a hassle to do a one ring. It's a super lovely weave, and the graduated earrings I think are lovely. All right, lovelies. Well, I'm going to call it a night, and I will see you all next week, or maybe through the week on Aussie Mailers. All right, guys. Thanks very much for turning up. Really appreciate it. And catch up with you next weekend. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Okay, bye everyone. Mwah.